Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we try to cut through all the noise from the weekly AWS announcements. We want to pull out the really high signal technical innovations for you. Today, we're looking at September 15th through the 19th, 2025.
Yeah, it was definitely a heavy week, a lot going on. Our goal here really is for you, the technical practitioner listening, to get a quick handle on the updates that actually change things. Things like how you manage infrastructure, boost data performance, and maybe most importantly this week, how you deploy the latest AI.
Right. And we saw like three big themes emerge, didn't we? First, this huge push in Gen AI, lots of new models, specialized compute. Second, some really interesting, almost breakthrough stuff in data analytics, changing how sorting and indexing work. And finally, some important updates for managing multiple accounts, governance, and hybrid compute as well.
Makes sense. So where should we start? AI seems like the obvious place given the velocity.
Yeah, let's dive into AI, ML, and next-gen compute. The pace there is just relentless.
Absolutely. And the big theme feels like more choice, but also more control, if that makes sense. Like on Amazon Bedrock, the foundation model lineup got way bigger. We saw the Qwen 3 models hit general availability. That includes both their dense models and the mixture of experts, the MoE ones.
And for practitioners, the thing to really note there, I think, are those Qwen 3 coder models, the 480B and 30B ones. They're specifically tuned for agentic coding, complex function calling. It's pretty clear AWS is aiming squarely at that autonomous agent workflow.
Right, building those complex agents. And speaking of complexity, DeepSeek v3.1 also hit GA on Bedrock. This one's pretty interesting. It actually has a switchable thinking mode, so you can toggle it for deep, detailed analysis or switch to a non-thinking mode for just quicker, faster responses.
Okay, wait, that sounds operationally significant. If I could just flick a switch programmatically between like a slow, expensive deep think and a quick, cheap check, that gives me real control over cost and performance per request. You don't usually get that kind of transparency with most models.
Exactly. It's a different way to manage the trade-offs. And sticking with that operational theme, there's good news for custom meta Llama models. Specifically Llama 3.3, if you fine-tuned it yourself after September 15th, you can now use on-demand deployment for it.
Oh, that's huge. Because the biggest pain point for custom models is paying for that always-on pre-provisioned infrastructure, right?
Yeah.
Even if traffic is bursty. So if you're running customized models, this could be a really significant cost saver.
For sure. Avoids that idle cost. We also saw new tools exposed directly via Bedrock APIs. 9 specialized stability AI image services are now GA. They're kind of grouped into edit tools, think erase objects, search and replace, and control tools for things like structure and style transfer.
So integrating advanced image editing right into your application flow through an API streamlines things for creative workflows, I imagine.
Definitely. Okay, so moving from the models themselves to the metal that runs them. These new complex models like the MoE ones, they really need robust, resilient infrastructure. What stood out on the compute side?
Well, the updates around SageMaker Hyperpod seem pretty key. That's the backbone for those really big, long training jobs, right?
Exactly. And Hyperpod now gets managed node autoscaling using Carpenter.
Oh, Carpenter.
Hmm.
That's important because it's known for being fast and efficient at provisioning, right? So your GPU capacity can scale up super quickly for, say, inference spikes, and critically, it can scale down to 0 nodes too, which saves costs and reduces that controller overhead.
Right. And for those marathon training runs, the ones that go for weeks, there's the Hyperpod health monitoring agent. It's now GA for Slurm clusters. This thing just runs in the background doing passive health checks, looking for, unresponsive GPUs, NVLink errors, that kind of stuff. And if it finds a problem, it automatically tries to reboot or even replace the unhealthy node.
That's crucial. Hands-free recovery. You don't want a single bad node derailing a multi-week training job. That saves a ton of potential hassle and cost.
Absolutely. And finally, on the infrastructure side, the AWS Neuron SDK version 2.26.0 for Trainium and Inferentia. It adds support for PyTorch 2.8 and JAX 0.6.2, but the really interesting bit is the beta support for expert parallelism.
Ah, okay. So if you're actually using those mixture of experts models we mentioned, like Qwen 3.
Yes, exactly. Expert parallelism is basically the software layer you need to efficiently spread those complex MoE models across multiple neuron cores. It's essential to get the best performance out of AWS's custom ML silicon for those specific model types.
Got it. Okay, let's shift gears. If that was all about specialized AI performance, this next section feels like specialized data performance. Data performance and analytics optimization. And we have to start with Redshift, that multidimensional data layouts or MDDL thing.
Yeah.
It sounds like more than just an incremental update.
Oh, it absolutely is. I think it's a genuine paradigm shift for Redshift data organization. It's GA now. Basically, forget just sorting by fixed columns. MDDL looks at your actual query filters over time. So if you're constantly querying, say, sales in the US and product XYZ, MDDL dynamically sorts the data based on that combination, not just on sales date or product ID.
Wow. So the sorting gets smarter based on how you actually use the data. That makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. And they're claiming up to 10x better end-to-end performance for workloads where you have those repetitive filter patterns. That's pretty dramatic.
It is. And the best part, if your tables are already using the default auto sort key, you get this benefit automatically. No manual resorting needed to start seeing gains.
Nice. Optimization without disruption. Okay, what about OpenSearch? Version 3.1 also landed.
Yeah, OpenSearch 3.1 GA. It bundles Lucene 10, which helps optimize vector field indexing, means faster indexing, smaller index size. Always good for vector search. But the headline feature for analytics, I think, is the star tree index.
Star Tree Index. I read about this. It sounds tailor-made for dashboards and real-time analytics, right? It pre-aggregates data during ingest.
Exactly. It pre-calculates results for common high cardinality, multidimensional queries like terms, aggregations, or histograms. The result is you can get sub-second response times on those queries, even on massive data sets. And crucially, you don't need to change your query syntax at all.
It just works underneath, like a performance layer that magically speeds things up.
Pretty much, yeah. It transparently accelerates those types of queries. And 3.1 also helps with storage costs. There's a new feature called Derived Source. It lets you choose not to store the full source field, which can be really bulky. Instead, OpenSearch can reconstruct it on the fly when you need it, like during a search or a reindex. Saves a lot of disk space.
Okay, so faster queries with Star Tree, less storage with Derived Source. And didn't OpenSearch Serverless get something too?
Right. Disk-optimized vectors for OpenSearch Serverless. It's a more cost-effective option for vector search. Basically, it uses disk instead of just RAM for storing vectors, which lowers the cost. You might trade off a tiny bit of latency, so it's great where sub-millisecond isn't a hard requirement, but you still need high accuracy and recall.
Makes sense. Balancing cost and performance. Okay, let's talk raw compute and storage visibility, new EC2 instances.
Yep, the R8GN instances went GA. These are powered by Graviton 4. The big headline is network bandwidth. They boast the highest among the network-optimized instances, up to 600 GBps. And importantly, the larger sizes support EFA, Elastic Fabric Adapter.
Right, EFA is critical for tightly coupled workloads, HPC, some ML training,
Yeah,
where you need that super low latency, high throughput communication between nodes. That 600 GBps is great, but EFA lets you actually use it effectively in a cluster.
exactly. And we also got much better insight into storage performance, specifically for the NVMe instance stores on Nitro-based instances. EC2 now exposes 11 detailed performance metrics, things like latency histograms, queue depth updated every single second.
1 second granularity. Right. That's basically real-time visibility into your local NVMe health.
Yeah.
Super useful for troubleshooting I/O bottlenecks when things go wrong.
Absolutely. And that ties perfectly into the next update. AWS Fault Injection Service, FIS, they've added a new fault action, I/O latency injection for EBS volumes.
Oh, interesting. So you can now use FIS to deliberately slow down EBS volumes, like simulating degraded storage performance.
Precisely. It's for chaos engineering. You can test how well your application, especially stateful ones like Oracle or SAP HA, handles storage latency spikes. It lets you validate your recovery procedures and maybe fine-tune timeouts before you experience a real storage issue in production. You really want to test that stuff.
Yeah, definitely better to find out in a controlled test. Okay, final section. Centralization, security governance, and hybrid expansion. This feels like the enterprise control plane stuff.
Yeah, simplifying life in those large multi-account environments and tightening up security and compliance.
Centralization is always a challenge. What's new there?
Well, OpenSearch Ingestion got an update. It now supports cross-account ingestion for push-based sources like logs coming over HTTP or via OpenTelemetry. The key benefit is you don't need to set up complex networking like VPC peering or transit gateway just to get logs from various accounts into a central OpenSearch domain. Simplifies the observability setup.
Okay, less network plumbing. And CloudWatch has something similar for logs, right?
Yes, CloudWatch cross-account, cross-region log centralization. It's designed to seamlessly copy log data from potentially hundreds of accounts in multiple regions into one designated central account. It integrates tightly with AWS Organizations, and crucially, the log events automatically get enriched with @aus.account and @aus.region fields.
Ah, that's vital. When you're debugging an issue using centralized logs, knowing exactly which account and region the log came from is non-negotiable. Context is everything.
Couldn't agree more. Helps tremendously with compliance and root cause analysis, too. Now, on the security governance front, there was a really big one for AWS organizations. Service control policies, SCPs, they now support the full IAM policy language.
Wow, okay. That is a big deal. People have been asking for that for ages. So you mean conditions, specific resource ARNs, no action, all of it.
All of it. Conditions, individual ARNs, node action with allow statements. Everything you can do in regular IAM policy, you can now basically do in an SCP. This allows security teams to write much more precise, much more granular guardrails across their entire organization, and potentially more concise policies too, because you have more expressive power. It's a huge upgrade for enterprise governance.
Definitely game changer for security architects managing large AWS footprints. We also saw some movement on account lifecycle visibility.
Minor, but useful. In AWS Organizations, the status field for an account is being replaced by a more granular state field. So instead of just active or suspended, you'll see things like suspended, pending closure, etc. Better visibility into where an account actually is in its lifecycle.
Okay, makes sense. What about connectivity and hybrid? There was an IPv6 push.
Yeah, IPv6 support continues to expand. This week, it landed for Kinesis data streams, including fix 140.3 validation in GovCloud, which is important there. Also, AWS Step Functions now supports dual-stack endpoints, including via private link, and AWS Storage Gateway also got dual-stack endpoint support.
So continuing the theme of enabling network modernization, letting organizations run IPv6 alongside IPv4.
Exactly. And on the hybrid side, the second generation of AWS Outpost racks saw a massive expansion. They're now available in 52 additional countries, plus new regions like Canada Central and US West and California. And these Gen 2 racks support newer EC2 instances, C7i, M7i, R7i, giving up to 40% better performance than the first-gen Outpost.
40%. That's a significant performance uplift for workloads you need to keep on-premises but manage with AWS tools.
It is indeed. And just a couple more quick hits. Aurora PostgreSQL Limitless Database became available in AWS GovCloud, US East-West. That's the serverless PostgreSQL offering that can automatically scale way out while maintaining transactional consistency. Good for certain government workloads now.
And one for the finance folks, or anyone managing project budgets.
Right. AWS Budgets now lets you create budgets with custom time periods. So instead of just being tied to calendar months or quarters, you can set a budget with a specific start and end date that exactly matches, say, a project timeline or a funding period. Much more flexible for tracking specific initiatives.
Okay. Useful quality of life improvement there. So let's try to pull it all together. What's the big picture from this week?
Well, I think the pattern is pretty clear. AWS is aggressively pushing really advanced technical capabilities deeper into their managed services. Think about things like Redshift MDDL automatically optimizing sorting, or the Hyperpod agent automatically healing nodes, or Startree just speeding up queries.
Yeah, it feels like they're focusing on removing the undifferentiated heavy lifting associated with running really specialized high-performance workloads. We saw it in AI with easier model access and self-healing infra. We saw it in data with these fundamental engine improvements in Redshift and OpenSearch. And we saw it in governance with more powerful SCPs and easier centralization. The goal seems to be, let us handle the complex infrastructure, you focus on your application.
Precisely. Making advanced features more accessible and reducing the operational burden. Taking the complexity out of achieving that specialized performance or resilience.
Which kind of leads us to a final thought, maybe a question for you listening. We just saw the launch of things like the DeepSeek v3.1 model, which has this explicit thinking mode, a cognitive primitive, really. And at the same time, we saw the launch of AWS FIS latency injection, a tool specifically designed to stress test your application's resilience. So the question becomes, as these tools become readily available, is your team spending more time fine-tuning the underlying infrastructure, or are you actively stress testing your resilience and actually leveraging these new, powerful cognitive capabilities?
Yeah, it's a good point. Where is the focus shifting? Is it still on the plumbing, or is it moving up the stack to really utilize these advanced features and test the limits?
Something to think about. On that note, thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in.
We'll catch you next time.